Hi everyone, my name is Nikki and I think most of you know me. I'm in the guide class in the Queer Pathfinder Club. So today I'll be teaching about the honor ferns. In the nature section, if you need this, listen to it and just get the honor and do the assignments. Okay, so uh, let's start with the few requirements first and then proceed to the assignments. It's a very simple honor and I think it's an understandable honor. And okay, so I'll give an example of a plant. This is a plant, but a fern might look like a leaf. It comes out from the ground as a leaf. So it's very different from a plant. So how are ferns different from flowering plants or trees? Flowering plants, including trees, produce seeds, while ferns produce spores. So spores cannot be seen with the naked eye, while seeds can be seen with the naked eye. A chief difference between spores and seeds is that spores have very little sorted food resources compared with seeds and thus require more favorable conditions in order to successfully germinate. And so the sperms have a little more um, uh, complex and favorable conditions to grow, while plants and trees can grow anywhere. Seeds, therefore, are more resistant to harsh conditions and require less energy. Spores are usually produced in large numbers to increase the chances of their survival because they grow in very harsh conditions. They produce more to grow more. So the two main points over here. Flowering plants produce seeds while ferns produce spores. The second point, a chief difference between spores and seeds is that spores have little food stored and seeds have seeds have much more food stored than spores, and seeds can grow in any condition, but spores can only grow in favorable conditions. Second question, where is the true stem of a fern? What part grows above the ground? What is the most favorable environment in which ferns grow? So, if you look at the fern over here, does it have a root? No, it just goes from the ground directly with a stem kind of thing, which is again called another name, which we will learn in a few seconds. If you can see, it just comes from the ground, has a leaf itself, but it's not a leaf, it's a fern. Ferns grow in wide variety of habitats, from remote mountain elevations to dry desert rock faces. So it can be found in high vegetation areas and in deserts like Kuwait. Ferns in general may be thought of as largely being specialists in marginal habitats, often succeeding in places where various environmental delimiters limit the success of flowering plants. So they can even grow where a flowering plant cannot grow. Suppose a rose cannot be seen in a desert, but a fern can be seen in a desert. On the other hand, some ferns are among the world's most serious weed species. So they're weeds. Weeds are annoying, but they are needed in the environment, such as the bracken growing in the British Highlands or the mosquito fern azolla growing in the tropical lakes. There are four particular types of habitats that are often key places to find ferns. The aforementioned, they can be found in deserts, moist, shady forest groves, the sheltered rock faces, especially when sheltered from the full sun, acid bogs and swamps, and tropical trees, where many species are epiphytes. Epiphytes is an organism that grows upon an attached living plant. So ferns cannot grow with the epiphytes. So 4 points to note over here. No, 5 points to note over here. The true stem of a fern grows underground. So the stem of the fern grows underground the soil. All the above So over here, you can see a fern. The true stem of the fern is underground the plant, even though in this picture we can't see it. It is said that it is underground. All the above parts of the fern are collectively known as the frond. This is the word frond. So in this fern, the frond, this line, the black color line over here, is the frond. Ferns usually grow in moist, shady woodlands, nooks, and in mountain elevations or in the deserts also. Ferns grow in wide variety of habitats. Some ferns are the world's most serious species of weeds, like the brackens growing in the British Highlands or the mosquito ferns in the Azolla. Now, we're going to talk about the third question, which is fern reproduction. We need to locate and describe the three kinds of sori from the three kinds of ferns. Ferns can also be known as the sori, S-O-R-I. So, fern reproduction involves some big words, but we will break them down for you as they are introduced. There are two generations in fern's life cycle: the diploid generation, which is seen in the blue color over here, and the haploid generation, which is seen in the red color. The diploid generation has a full complete of genetic material, while the haploid generation has only half the genetic material. Diploid, full; haploid, half. The life cycle of a typical fern is as follows. Take points. Taken points, Hassan. A mature fern is called a spore fern, which produces spores through a process called meiosis, pronounced meiosis. Each spore has only half the genetic material of the parent plant and on a condition called haploid. The spores are then dispersed. Then the spores, by cell division, turns into a gametophyte, still with only the half the genetic material of the adult organism. The gametophyte then produces a sperm and eggs in the same organism using the process called mitosis. The egg remains attached to the prolatus, but the sperm leaves the prolatus and spins to the egg on another plant, which it then fertilizes. The fertilized egg is now has a full set of genetic material and is called a diploid, and it grows into a zoophyte, the typical adult fern plant. And then the reproduction takes place over and over to make the same kind of fern, but many types, many of them. Yeah, that's correct. So let's see. This is the, what is it? Oh yes, the name is here. This is the saurophyte. The saurophyte produces the spores. The spores in the same organism make the male gametes and the female gametes, and it is done in the prothalamus through the process of mitosis. And again, through the process of mitosis, they are separated into male and female gametes. And then again, through the fertilization, male and female gamete, it goes and becomes, what was the name? It goes and becomes, oh, there's no name for that. The gametophyte produces both the sperm. And thus is called a diploid. Okay, so the male and the female gamete fertilizes and forms the diploid. Then the diploid then becomes a saurophyte. So again, I'll repeat: the saurophytes, the mature fern, produces the spores. The spores, through the process of mitosis, become the prothalamus. The prothalamus, again through mitosis, give both male and female gamete in the same organism. And in the same organism, through fertilization, they make a diploid. And diploid transforms into a developing saurophyte. The developing saurophyte then becomes a mature saurophyte, which is the fern. Okay. Now, kinds of sori or kinds of ferns. The sori is the given species of the fern. A scientific name of a fern is a sori and always takes on the same characteristics of the fern. They are usually arranged on the underside of a fertile frond, sometimes in straight lines, sometimes in curved lines, sometimes in circular clumps, and sometimes in kidney-shaped clumps. Because there are a variety of arrangements of the sori and because of the arrangements on each species is somewhat fixed, the characteristic is often used to identify the fern. There are four types of ferns: the woodburia, the petudium, the andadadium, and the onocolia. The genus of fern is commonly known. The Woodburia. This genus of fern is commonly known as the chain fern, because the sori are arranged in broken lines, somewhat resembling a chain. The Petrodium. This genus of fern is commonly known as the bracken. The sori are arranged along the edge of the frond and the edge is curled over slightly. Anidatium. The genus has kidney-shaped sori along the edge of the frond. Onocolia. The sori of the Onocolia genus are clustered like beets or like grapes and are on the upright fertile fronds. Hence the common name bead frond. This fern over here is the Anandanium kuhangihami. I'm just going to call it Anandanium, showing the characteristics in rolled leaf margin containing the sori. So what is the sori? Let's just look at that for a minute. I will give me annotate. I will annotate it. Okay, let me just get it. This right here is the sori. There are four kinds of sori. They can be in chains, they can be broken, they can be in any house. So that's the sori. SORI. Question number 4. How do spores travel from the parent plant to a new location? How long does it take to a spore to develop into a mature plant? Observe from live plants or from pictures how a young fern is different from an adult fern. So let's take points first. Spores are stored by the fern in tiny cases called spongia. These spores cases are massed together into sores, flores of sori, which is visible to the naked eye on the underside of the fertile frond. Not all fronds are fertile, but some fronds are fertile. The spore case is encircled by a ring consisting of a single layer of cells called the annulus. The ring goes almost all the way around the spore case. As the cases dries out, it becomes brittle until it finally splits open. Since the ring is stronger than the rest of the spore case, it slowly pulls the case open, and when the water tension is released, the ring suddenly snaps. Because spores are tiny, visible to the naked eye, even the slightest breeze will carry them great distances. If a spore lands in a location which is favorable to its condition, it will develop into a gametophyte in about 2 weeks. If the gametophyte is fertilized, it will grow into a young fern in about 3.5 months. The amount of time required for the growth of spirit varies greatly depending on the condition and the species of the fern. Now, let us take a look at the adult and young fern. So, this is a young Polycythium certifium still in its fiddle head stage. Fiddle head stage means it's curled up and kept together before it is spread out to a mature fern. So in this you can see the Polycythium curled up together and you can see that it is not not a big fern which has all its fronds just out. So this mature polycythium with its fronds, you can see the fronds are all lifted up and it is beautifully kept in a beautiful arrangement. But this one little young polycythium has these many fronds. Just one young polycythium will mature into a big polycythium. Question number 5. Know the medical uses of tree ferns. Know the medical uses. So we're going to learn about the medical uses of tree ferns. Anidatium alcium, or I'll just pronounce it as Western maidenhair fern. The Western maidenhair fern is used in tea to strengthen muscle membranes, treat coughs, throat congestion, and respiratory irritation caused by air pollution. So it is very good for the lungs. The Western maidenhair fern, I think in most cough syrups, if you go through the ingredients, you can find this. Anidatium allicinium. Asplenium solopendrenium, or I'll just call it heart's tongue fern. Heart's tongue fern is used in folk medicine as spleen tonic. So it's good for our spleen. It's used as spleen tonic. Sabatinum mezzini, the Hawaiian tree fern. The pith of the trunk of this fern, that means the pith of the trunk of the fern, is used in a combination of Hawaiian plants to create a blood purifier and is used in other combinations to help relieve weaknesses or chest pain. Heated fibers of the fronds are used to cure numerous of bodily ailments such as muscle pain, stiff joints, and etc. So the Hawaiian tree fern is good for our pains in our body. So the Philodendron arum, this is the fourth one, another example, but it's good to know. The cabbage palm fern is one of the most useful ferns there are in the world because it is used for the skin, Alzheimer's disease, dementia, memory loss, coughs, and autoimmune disorders. So how can we identify this fern from the rest of the ferns? So if you take a closely look over here, let me annotate it for you. If you take a look, there are red circles or reddish brown dots, which are there all over the leaf. So this is how you identify this fern from the rest of the ferns. If you are stuck in the tropicals, you can find this fern and you can use them for coughs, bronchitis, chests, colds, or other upper respiratory problems, or for autoimmune disorders. So it's very useful, and I think most of us should know about this fern. So let's go to our next sixth question. Question number 6. Draw or photograph 10 kinds of ferns and properly identify them. So this is an assignment which will be posted in the Google Classroom, which I'll be talking about later on. So this in the Kuwait Pathfinder Google Classroom, and over here, so I'm going to talk about 10 kinds of ferns, and I'm properly identifying them and where they're found, what they are. So the ostrich fern, I will not be stating the scientific name because it is quite difficult to pronounce. The ostrich name where it is found in the northern hemisphere, in the eastern or northern Europe, so northern Asia, northern North America. So it's always on the north side. This ostrich fern, or is also known as the shuttlecock fern, is a crown forming fern, which is like a crown forming, and it is a colony forming fern. So it forms together with the ostrich fern forms a group of ostriches ferns, so you can say it's a colony kind of fern, which grows completely in a vertical crown. So it's always growing in vertical crowns, favoring riverbanks and sandbars, but it sends out lateral sortlons to form new crowns. It thus can form dense colonies and is resistant to destruction by floodwaters. So it grows where there is more water. So that is why it is found in the northern sides. The oak fern. The oak fern is found in the Canadian forest. It can also be found in Scotland, Scandinavia, as well as the northwestern United States. The oak fern is a fern that is from the family of Polydec. It is small, delicate fronds with terminally common pinnae. The pinnae is also known as the leaves for this fern, oak fern. Fronds occur singularly. So the fronds occur singularly. You can see only one frond here on the underside of the mature pinnae, which can be naked sori can be found. A naked sori. So you can see this dark thing over here. That's a naked sori. The common male fern. It is found in the temperate northern hemisphere, occurring throughout much of Europe, Asia, and North America. It favors damp and shaded areas and is particularly obtuse in the understory of woodlands, but also found in shady places on hedge banks, rocks, and streams. It is much less abundant in North America and in Europe. The half evergreen leaves have an upright, so the description I'm describing about them, the half evergreen leaves have an upright habitat, so they're always upright, and have a maximum length of 1.5 meters. The whole plant is about 1.5 meters, with a single crown on the rock stem. There's a single crown on the rock stalk. The binte leaves is all about 20 to 50, 35 pinnae on each side of the rachis. The rachis is the middle part. The leaves taper at both the ends, the basal pinnae about half and half the length of the middle pinnae. The pointers are rather blunt, is equally forked at all around. The stalks are covered with orange to brown scales. So that's about the male fern. The cinnamon fern. The cinnamon fern is a native to the Americas and the Eastern Asia, growing in moist woodlands. In North America, it occurs from the southern Labrador west to Ontario and south to the eastern United States or to the eastern Mexico or West Indies. It is there in South America, in Peru, Paraguay, and in Asia, it occurs in the southeastern Siberia, south through Japan, Korea, China, Taiwan, and Myanmar, Thailand, and Vietnam. Description. It is a deciduous herbaceous plant which produces separate fertile and sterile fronds. So, fertile and sterile fronds are both there. The sterile frons is about 30 to 150 centimeters tall and 12 to 15 to 20 centimeters broad. Pinte with the pinte 5 to 10 centimeters long and 2 to 5 centimeters broad. Deeply lobed. So there are fronds that are nearly but not quite pinnate. The fertile spores bearing fronds are erect and shorter. There is 20 to 45 centimeters tall. They become cinnamon colored, which gives them species its name. The fertile leaves appears first. Their green color slowly becomes brown and the season progresses. As the spores are dropped, the spores bearing the stem persist after the sterile fronds are killed by frost until the next season. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Interrupted fern. Interrupted fern is native to the eastern Northern America or the Eastern Asia. So it is in the eastern side. In eastern North America, it occurs to the from the southern Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, up to the tree line east of the Newfoundland and south through the Al- Alpatine Mountains, down to Georgia and west to the Mississippi River. In Asia, it is found in the Himalayas in India, southern of China, Japan, Korea, and Taiwan. The fronds are benthe, 40 to 100 centimeters long and 20 to 30 centimeters broad. The blade formed of an alternate segments forming an arching blade frightening to a pointed end. The lower end is also slightly thinner than the rest of the frond because the first segments are shorter. 3 to 7 short cinnamon colored fertile segments are inserted in the middle of the length, giving the plant its name in their absence. The plant is in stages of extremely similar to Osmondia on Camlia, the cinnamon fern. So it is similar to the cinnamon fern. And to distinguish them, look at the base of the segments where the cinnamon has a typical felt like hairs, and the few hairs present on the are extremely short, using requiring a magnifying glass to see them. So there are different types of magnifying glasses we can use to see these ferns also, but that's in different sort of different. Okay, the brackens, the most in the British Highlands and the most common in the world's weed species. The genus has probably the widest distribution of any fern species in the world, being found all over the continents except Antarctica and in all environments except for hot and cold deserts. Brackens are a genus about 10 species of large coarse ferns. The plant sends up a large triangular frond from a wide creeping underground rock stool and may be formed from dense thickets. This rock stool may travel in a mere meter or more underground between fronds. The fronds may grow up to 2.5 meters or 8 feet long or long with support, but typically are in about 6 to 2 meters or 2 to 6 feet high. In cold environments, bracken in minted deciduous and as it requires well-drained soil, it generally is formed growing on sides of hills. So, the vegetable fern. The vegetable fern is found all throughout Asia and Oceania. Vegetable fern is an edible fern, so we can eat it. It is probably the most commonly consumed fern and is quite tasty, giving the name vegetable. It is used in Oceanian recipes and made into salads and stir fries. I should eat this sometime. Okay. The Tasmanian tree fern. The Tasmanian tree ferns. I'm wondering if mine is a fern too now. The Tasmanian tree fern is an evergreen fern native to the parts of Australia, namely the South Wales. Tasmania and Victoria, it is particularly suited in garden planting and landscaping purposes and is one of the most popular weeds in the world. Description: these ferns can grow up to 50 meters in height, but more typically it can grow up to 4 to 5.5 meters and consist an erect rhizome forming a trunk. They are very hairy on the base and the stripe of the large dark green trunk, roughly textured. Fronds spread in a canopy to 2 to 6 meters in diameter. The shapes of these sterns vary from each, some curved and some other are multi-headed ones. The fronds are borne in flushes with fertile and sterile fronds, often in alternating layers. The fern delves in variety of wet swamps and food habitats, wet meadows, thickets and bogs, as well as streams and riverbanks, roadside ditches. It ranges from the new found land to Florida and west to Texas, North Dakota, and Manitoba, but it is also native to East Asia and has become naturalized in Western Europe. Description: the sensitive fern, the Oncolia sensitivus, also known as bead fern, is a coarse textured medium to large size perennial fern. The name comes from the observation by the early settlers that it was sensitive to frost. The the sensitive fern is sensitive to frost. That's interesting. Um, the sterile and fertile fronds of this fern are quite different. The bright yellow-green sterile fronds are deeply pinnated and are typically borne at intervals along a creeping rhizome. They grow about 90 centimeters long with a long, smooth stripe. The fertile fronds are much smaller, non-green, and have very narrow pinnae. The soris are customized like bees or grapes on an upright fertile frond, hence the common name bead fern. The fiddle fiddleheads are a pale red color. The fiddleheads are pale red color. So in this fern, there's two types. Isn't that amazing? Okay. The Christmas fern, why is it called the Christmas fern? The Christmas fern is native to the eastern North America and from Nova Scotia west to Minnesota and south to Florida and eastern Texas. Description: the Christmas fern is an evergreen fern with fronds growing up to 30 to 80 centimeters long and is 5 to 12 centimeters broad, pinnate with 20 to 35 pairs of pinnules. The spores are produced on small pinnules towards the apex of the front. The fern was once commonly used for Christmas decorations. So that's why it's called a Christmas fern, because it's used for Christmas decoration. Now I get it. Okay. Question number 7. So I finished explaining the 10 different kinds of fern. I'll be drawing them myself and submitting an email to the Great Pathfinder Club. And let's head to question number 7. Question number 7. In addition to the common ferns, there are fern-like plants known as club mosses and horsetails. Be able to recognize the club mosses and horsetail. How are these similar to the ferns? Club mosses. Okay, just give me a minute. Okay, I put 3 pictures of club mosses. You can see them on the screen. Club mosses is a term that describes the botanical family Lycopodiaceae. Lycopodiaceae. It is a family in one's level up the hierarchy from the genus. The club mosses bear spores on specialized structure at the apex of the shoot. They resemble a tiny battle club from which the common name derives. So the club mosses is always in clubs. So that is why they're named as clubs, battle clubs. They are non-flowering and do not produce seeds. The Lycopodium clavatum or the ground pine. This plant resembles a tiny pine tree. It grows in forests and sends runners underground from when the other plant springs. So it sends roots underneath from where the other plants grow out. So it reproduces through the roots. The Lycopodium sequoiasum. Okay, I'll just say tassel fern. The tassel fern, these plants are also not true ferns. They are not true ferns. They are also similar to the lacatum, this one, but they are branched. So they are branched. They are not clubbed, but they are branched and they hang from above, somewhat like this weeping willow. The last liquor Lycopodium serratum, or else I'm just going to say toothed club mosses. Toothed club mosses. This plant is similar to the appearance to L. clavatum, this one. It prefers sandy to loamy soils. This fern, this club mosses are not ferns, neither are they plants. They reproduce at the same time. They use spores, but they also reproduce in different types. So prefers, and they are dippled, or they prefer to go in deep shade. So wherever there it is shady and wherever it is sandy or loamy soils, they prefer to go there. Their water repellent spores can be used as a lubricant to keep things from sticking together. So they have water repellent spores, and that's how they reproduce. Let's see about horsetails. I've given two pictures over here. Horsetails, like club mosses and ferns, bear spores rather than seeds. Horsetails are in the order of equistails, which consist of a single family called Eucistaceae. There are 15 species in this order. Eucatis arabids feel Eucatis aravis, the field horsetail, is a rather bushy perennial with a rhizomatous stem formation native to the northern hemisphere. So it grows in the northern hemisphere in the northern hemisphere, and it has a perennial bushy root. These horsetails may have sterile or fertile stem. So these horsetails may have sterile or fertile stems. The sterile stems start to grow after the fertile stems have wilted. The sterile stems tend to be much taller and bushier, with the jointed segments being around 1 inch long with diameter about 1/20 of an inch. These segments contain one set of the whole center erect branch each. Some sterns can have as many as 20 segments and can be as tall as 2 to 24 inches. These fertile stems can tend to be half as tall as a sterile stem and also tend to be more succulent. So, what does a field horsetail do? Let me just brief it up. So, they are more succulent, they have slender, erect branches, and they are very bushy. That is the field horsetail. The marsh horsetail, also known as the equistem plaster. Equistem plaster is a perennial horsetail, growing between 10 to 50 centimeters or 4 to 20 feet. In rare cases, it can go up to 1 meter or 3 feet. Its fertile shoots, which carry ears, are evergreen and shaped like the sterile shoots. The rough furrowed stem is about 3 millimeter in diameter, which usually has 8 to 10 ribs, and in rare cases 4 to 12 ribs. It contains a whole branch, whorl branch. The tight-fitting sheets end in 4 to 12 teeth. 4 to 12 teeth. Can you see this? The lower sheets are dark brown and much shorter than the sheets of the main shoot. The central and the vascular are about the same size. The carnal channels are much smaller. The center channels measure about 1/6 of the diameter of the stem. So let me just summarize this in about 3 points. The marsh horsetail are long horsetails. So they're like very long, but they're not bushy. They just have stems, and they are perennial. They grow between 10 to 15 centimeters, or in rare cases, they can grow up to 1 meter. And their 3 millimeters in diameter. So they're 3 millimeters in diameter. They have about each, so there this is one rib. This is one rib. So about there can be a 4 to 12 ribs in rare cases, or when they are simply growing, they can be 8 to 10 ribs. So that's it about for our honor today. And this is the Ferns E Pathfinder honor. I will be giving assignment in the part 2. Thank you for listening.